Guys, you are going to love my next guest. If you've never heard this man on radio, he's on the Blaze Network. You should check him out. Check out his show. I really enjoy listening to him. I don't get to listen to him as frequently as I used to, but when I do, I absolutely love hearing his take on issues of the day. But the reason why he's here is to talk about his movie Nefarious, which is the bomb. Steve Deace, welcome to the Officer Tatum Show, man.
It's an honor, Carl, and Salem has been great to me. Without Phil Boyce and Ed Atzinger, who took a chance on me, Stu Upperson Sr., I'd not be where I am today. And they've been great streaming hosts for Nefarious this month as well. So it's a pleasure to be back here at the old homestead.
All right. Well, Steve, let me ask you something, because I've listened to you in the past, and if you don't want to go here, don't. That's fine. But I heard some of your personal story. I was telling Steve during the break that I used to listen to him late night when I had no business listening to him. I should have been asleep. But I happened to catch him one night, and I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but he is good. He is really good. In my opinion, he mixed political analysis with a biblical worldview, made it very crystal clear, and he had a testimony of his childhood and his life. And Steve, I've got to ask you if that contributed to your ability to be able to write a book and create such a film as Nefarious.
Without question. If you look at, maybe the singular greatest thinker in the history of the church, other than Christ himself, St. Paul, he held the tunics and encouraged the stoning of the first martyr, Stephen. When he's on the road to Damascus, he is on the way to perhaps arrest and help to murder Christians. Maybe the second greatest thinker in the history of the church, other than Christ, is Augustine. He belonged to a sex cult. You go throughout the history of the church, a lot of times those who were rescued from the greatest darkness end up, becoming some of the boldest advocates for the light. And that's, I try to emulate that in my own imperfect way. I grew up in an abusive home. I was born to a 15-year-old mom. She found out over Christmas break at 14, she was pregnant by her high school senior boyfriend. Her mom was already twice divorced and kind of living in the white trash part of town, so she wasn't sure what to do. Roe v. Wade comes down the pike about a month later, and now she's got an option in her first trimester to kill her kid. And she just, in the end, she couldn't go through with it. And she ended up giving birth to me at 15. But now she's going to be a single mom, and we're literally going to grow up together. And she marries a Navy sailor who comes from an abusive background. He ends up being abusive as well. I grew up around a lot of abuse. I had to physically defend my mom from my dad. I had to physically defend myself at times from my dad. And so those sorts of circumstances, it's what Joseph says to his brothers when they sell him into slavery. And then he tells them later, what you meant for evil, God used for good. And
Amen.
Romans 8:28, all things work together for the glory of God and those called according to his purposes. Those experiences shaped me and what I do today. And frankly, if I'd grown up in a good home, Brandon, in a functional home, I doubt I could do the kind of content I do today. I'd probably want to be doing something a lot nicer.
Well, listen, you honestly, how God is using you, it's absolutely amazing. Let's get into the movie. And I went home one night, and my wife had she had started to play it. She paused it for me. I was really tired. It was late, but she had some food. I was going to eat the food, Steve, and I was like, I don't know if I could watch this. I don't know if I could watch this tonight. My eyelids were ready to shut. She turns this thing on. My eyes are wide open for the entire film. And I'm telling you, when I get sleepy, I'm known in my family. I'm not even going to lie, Steve. I can go to somebody's house and visit, and I can fall asleep in their chair. When I'm tired, I'm tired. I'm ready to go to sleep.
Yes. Yeah.
I couldn't go to sleep. It kept my attention from get to go, from the very beginning until the end. We only have 30 seconds before the break, and if you could stay with me here, Steve. But sure. I got this sense you could watch this as a believer, this film as a believer. You could watch it with a non-believer. Both of you could appreciate this thriller and walk away with something totally different. Was that intentional?
Yes. We made
Wow.
this film to be the film you could take unbelievers to and not cringe, but then it might wreck their worldview in the process. That's why we made the film. You bet.
All of you that listen, and I've said it, I've been guilty of it. Christian movies are too freaking cheesy. This is not one of those films. Steve Deace, welcome back.
Thank you, Carl. Appreciate it. That's one of the nicest things you can say about our movie. It's not cheesy. I literally had in my contract when they bought the movie rights to my book, no cheesy conversion scene. That's actually in my contract. We weren't going to do that.
Wow. Okay. It was smart not to do that because they pulled it off. We were talking about before we went to break here, Steve, how you could literally, if you're and it doesn't feel preachy. And it doesn't feel preachy. This is what I love. I literally think people could get saved and not know what smacked them in the face. But watching this film, but you could literally go to the theater. You could be a non-believer and a believer and get different things from it. You did that intentionally. Expound on that a little bit, please.
We made the film evangelistically. We never tried to make a Christian movie. All of us that were part of making the film, I mean, our screenwriters and our directors, Carrie Solomon and Chuck Conselman, did an outstanding job with Unplanned. And a lot of people remember their breakthrough hit, God's Not Dead. We wanted to make a movie where we didn't intentionally make a Christian movie, but just made the best movie we could. And because all of us have a Christian worldview, it would organically present itself. And so we didn't look at any previous Christian movie formula, Carl. We a lot of our movie kind of, you remember when we were kids, we picked the Crunch Berries out of the Captain Crunch, right? You know, and then they came out with the cereal that was just the Crunch Berries. You're like, that's what I'm talking about. But we did that. we did that with Silence of the Lambs. No one remembers the tranny killer Buffalo Bill. Everybody remembers the interaction between Clarice and Hannibal Lecter. And we're like, what if we made a whole movie that's just those interactions? And that's what we did. All right.
Wow.
So our an atheist psychiatrist, played expertly by Jordan Belfi, who kind of represents the average American who truly thinks because they went to government school and college, they know all the answers of the universe. And Sean Patrick Flannery is absolutely masterful as our demon Nefarious, who kind of, it's kind of Interview with a Demon. He kind of shows him the true origin of his worldview over the course of this real-time psychiatric eval. And you watch this left-wing psychiatrist get absolutely and completely wrecked from a worldview standpoint by the end of this movie. And it's expertly acted. There's so many stories of spiritual warfare, Carl, what it took to make this movie, how God opened doors and introduced it to people we didn't even know to get it done. It has been one heck of a journey to get to the point of conception to screen.
Wow, praise God. And I got to tell you, the acting by the gentleman, Sean Patrick Flannery, that's some of the best acting I have ever seen. And I mean that. That it was.
Yeah.
Yes. Good
that
stuff.
Was convincing the psychiatrist to get tranny surgery. He'd be nominated for every major award in Hollywood, but because instead he shines a real light on evil and the enemy, which I guess, aren't we kind of saying that if we know a movie that exposes the devil won't win an award in Hollywood, then aren't we kind of saying that Hollywood is supportive of the devil? I mean, isn't that the implication of the statement, right? I mean,
you got it right.
I mean, what we're saying.
You know what I love too is what I love. If I were a non-believer walking into that film, you wouldn't know what hit you.
Yes.
But your worldview is going to be challenged while you're being scared and entertained. Because I sat there thinking when I was watching this guy act out as the demon, I was like, I would not, if I met this guy in real life, I would not want to go near him. He did such a good job.
Him and his gorgeous wife homeschool their kids in Texas, but he's also like a black belt in like judo or something. So no, you may not want to cross Sean. May not, but I mean I remember being on set watching him perform the role, man, and it was just I would watch him do 8, 9, 10 pages of dialogue in a take, and we were just like, keep the camera rolling, man. This dude this is on. Don't stop. Don't interrupt greatness. Just keep it going, And I mean, the performance was truly a magnum opus, and And he'll tell you, it's the most, you're talking about a guy that has starred in a lot of major films. A lot of people remember Boondock Saints, one of the classic films of the 1990s. He'll tell you this is the most important work that he's ever done as an entire career. And he's been in Hollywood for over 30 years.
Man, speak to the point that I was making here, Steve, about non-believers having their worldview questioned, particularly in the areas of life. Like what I loved about it, I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, man, this movie, not only does it entertain you, but literally, if you take a non-believer in there, it is going to force them to think about their worldview in a way that I believe they probably never have experienced or encountered, even if they've gone to church, quite frankly.
Which is exactly what we tried to do. I saw the last week or 2 weeks ago, the Mom's Basement Dwellers at Media Matters was warning lefties not to go see this movie. It's not a real horror film. I was literally saying in public, our entire marketing campaign is a bait and switch. We did a trailer to make it look like a traditional horror film to trick the pagans into coming into the theaters. They do this to us. We can now, why not? Why can't we turn it around on them? So we tricked the pagans into the theaters precisely so that we could then challenge their worldview. Because I think, and this is I think a really important point, Carl, for your audiences like yours to remember, we are almost out of cartilage in the knee of America. There's almost no buffer more between the bones, the two bones that are constantly in friction with one another. And that means there's not too many places where we can persuade each other anymore. One of the last places where I think persuasion can still happen is via story.